Hello, everybody, and welcome to Powerful with myself, Jeff Coulard, and occasionally some guests. Not today, but hopefully in the near future, we're going to have some folks on the show. This is in lieu of the podcast. And so if you're a podcast listener and you've checked it out before, I've put it on hold a little bit for the summer and kind of through some of this COVID duration. And I thought I would exchange it for a bit of a live show on an infrequent basis, streamed to Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. And so, welcome and thanks for joining me. And today I wanted to just dig in a little bit to the concepts of power, and particularly three types of power that exist inside of the right use of power framework. And so, let's get going. I'm going to show my screen here and I'm going to walk you through a few different. Add that to the stream. There we go. I'm back and I'm still figuring out the live streaming software. So if you're tuned in and you're like, what's he doing? I'm learning how to drive. And so thanks for your patience. But we're going to talk about, like I said, the three different types of power from the right use of power framework. And so this is really so the right use of power framework, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is a set of principles, a set of rules around power and how it shows up, particularly in relationship. And so it's interpersonal power, but it's also deals with power from a systemic point of view. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And certainly the conversation in society right now is about power is pretty prevalent. You know, everything from the Black Lives Matter movement to politics, you know, very polarized politics in a lot of different places in the world right now. And it can all be understood through this lens of power. And what I love about the right use of power framework is that it's not pathologizing. It doesn't say power is good or bad. It actually acknowledges that power is just a neutral concept and we get to use power. We get to operationalize power either in pursuit of the benefit of the people in relationship or the benefit of one party versus another, which is how we typically see power. We typically see power as a power struggle, as something that we need to fight over, as a limited amount of resource that we need to take as much as we can. So there's certainly a mindset around power that's prevalent, at least in Western society, that is very individualistic and very zero-sum kind of game where if you have power, it means I don't have power, and the goal is to get some. So we're going to talk a little bit about, like I said, the three different types of power, and this is really to help you start to notice power in the relationships that you have with people in your life, and hopefully use your power better. You know, that's the journey that I'm on, certainly, as a parent and as a professional, is to make sure that the power that I do have, I'm operationalizing it really well in pursuit of some shared goals and values that I have with the people in my life. And this framework has been particularly helpful for me, so I wanted to share it with you. So let's talk about the three different types of power, and the first type of power being personal power. And the best way to think of this is it's portable. It's the power that you have as an individual when you wake up in the morning to affect change in your life or in the world around you, or to get your needs met, right? Or to act in relation to your own values, or to pursue your own goals, right? So it's very much individualistic and it comes from within. And the theory is that we all have personal power, and we do all have personal power. And how much personal power we have, how much agency or autonomy that we have in any given moment fluctuates. And so I know that as a parent, I feel this very acutely. When I'm tired and when I'm stressed out, I sometimes use my personal power to get my own needs met. And sometimes it involves raising my voice a little bit, being a little bit stern with my kids, saying no to their requests because I'd rather meet my own requests. And so, if personal power we can use to get our own needs met, right? And like I said, it fluctuates up and down, but it's our birthright. We all have power, and we grow into our power. And so my 3-year-old doesn't have as much power as his 8-year-old brother does, because his 8-year-old brother has more life experience, more language, more nuance, more emotional intelligence, the ability to understand his power and operationalize it well. Doesn't mean my 3-year-old doesn't have power, because he certainly knows how to get his needs met, right? And so we all have power. You know, a newborn baby comes out of the womb with power to get their needs met. So personal power is something that grows over time and we have access to at different times. And there are certain factors in life that limit our access to our personal power. And we can dig into that as a topic, and I'll have some guests on the show and we'll talk about personal power and the pursuit of that. The second type of power that you're probably familiar with because you probably experience it on a regular basis, and I already alluded to it, is this idea of role power. And so when I'm in relation to someone else, I have a role with that other person. And so with my kids, I'm a father and I have role power. And so I want to operationalize that role power. And role power comes with it a set of responsibilities and usually a set of perks of some kind, right? And so we often think of roles as things that you're paid to do or that have a job description attached to them. That's certainly one really good way to think of roles. Roles are also bound inside of a context. They're not portable. Role power from one domain doesn't transfer to another, right? So my experience as a father, the role that I carry, the power that I have as a father doesn't transfer into a workshop that I'm doing with other professionals, right? It might give me some experience and some expertise that I can draw upon, but I don't have the same kind of power in that context because the relationship is different and the role that I have as a facilitator or as a speaker is different than the role I play as a father. And it's the same as if you're a pilot of an airplane, right? When you're in the cockpit, you have that power, but when you walk in the front door of your house, you're a father or a mother, right? And so one good way to think about role power is it usually comes with, if not an actual uniform, it could come with a uniform. It could come with something that you could take off, hang up as you walk in your house, and not have power attached to it. Okay? And there's all kinds of things that we'll talk about around role power, but that's a distinct type of power. And the third type of power I want to talk about today is this idea of status power. And status power is the best way to describe it. The best way to think about it is really that it's about membership, right? And if we have membership in a certain club, right, based on characteristics that are out of our control, right, then it comes with its status power. And as somebody with a ton of status power, as a white, heterosexual, middle-aged, English-speaking, well-educated male in Western society, I actually have a ton of status power, and it follows me around. We commonly think of it as privilege, and there's a lot of conversations happening in society right now about what to do about status power and how to ensure that status power doesn't turn into systemic power that turns into systemic racism or discrimination. And so it's those three primarily that intersect. And so our personal power and our role power and our status power all collide, all come together to essentially give us the ability to affect change in the world. And sometimes we lean on our role power. Sometimes I lean on the fact that I'm a facilitator or a speaker to get things done. In the same way you might lean on being a teacher or a manager, right? And you'll use the power in that role to get things done. Sometimes I find myself leaning on my personal power, my own ability to communicate or persuade people, or what little charisma or humor I might have to get people to take action, to get my needs met or to get their needs met. And then status power is the one that we often don't actually think about unless it gets pointed out to us or unless we don't have it. I think the people who are most aware of power are the people who are in what's called a down power role. And I'll talk about up and down power another time. But this is really the fundamentals of the right use of power framework really stem from this idea that there are multiple different types of power. And when we're not aware of them, we're most at risk of accidentally or unintentionally misusing or abusing the power that we have. Okay. I hope that you enjoyed that little look at the three different types of power, and I hope that the driving was okay on this live stream. I'm going to keep figuring this out as we go, and I look forward to talking to you again at some other time, some other place.